Here are some of the things that you may experience when you start to realize that everything is one or non-dual in nature, meaning there's nothing outside of you and nothing is not anything. And also part of the reason why I've had a hard time posting very many videos lately, you start to realize that every person in front of you and every situation that you encounter is you, but you may not understand how. What I mean by that is that you are reflecting that situation into the world. And this itself can cause a lot of turmoil, because if you don't like the situation you're seeing or the person that you're seeing in front of you, but then suddenly realize that you're responsible for it, it causes all kinds of emotions and questions and things to come up within you. And as you ask those questions, you find answers. And the answers can feel like epiphanies and also be very devastational. But the devastation is only felt because of your judgment upon yourself for the situation or what you find. But then you also know that you're the one who's writing the story. It's all a story that you're writing, because there's no other than you. So there's no question about, well, what about others? They literally are you. And the role that they're playing in your life is just the role that you're seeing them in. But you can also, because you don't fully realize who you are, feel like you don't have control, but know that you do. And the more that you start to realize this and see this, you start to see how everything is connected to yourself. Literally, I can think something and then see it in my reality. When you really start doing this, like for instance, say you have a suicidal thought, and then you see someone die the way that you thought. It makes you want to escape or not exist even more, but you realize that that's not a possibility, that you actually have to face that scared part of yourself and make sense of it into a different story, because all stories exist. We just don't see them in reality, the physicalness of reality, unless we can make sense of it with this brain. And our brain capacity is only limited by what we believe about it. Go to part 2. This is part 2 of the things that you may experience when you start to realize that everything is one or non-dual in nature, that you are everything that you see, and also why it's been harder for me to post some videos recently. So, when you start looking around at people and situations that come up in your life, you then start questioning why they're there. What are they showing you about you? Because you know that they are you being reflected to you. Past, present, and future kind of get blurry, because you can see them almost all at once in a way. There's not a straight timeline either, because the stories, all of them exist. You could say in different realities, different timelines, however you want to put it. It's all a story anyway. So I'll tell you what happened. I was trying to do tarot readings and I was seeing a lot of death, which caused me to feel a little bit anxious, nervous, like, who's gonna die? And then, but I didn't want to be afraid of it. But then I'm also like, why is someone gonna die? We see death in this world all the time. And then I was seeing things like, it looked like a flood. Like, I kept seeing floods. And I'm like, how the hell could we have a flood here? Where I'm at, there's not anything that could flood here. But I also know that floods represent water, which is emotions. I also know that death is not even a real thing as far as tangible, something outside of me. Death represents transformation. Again, these are all stories because they can be defined, and if they're defined, it's part of the story that I've made up. But either way, something's coming unless I understand and come to a new understanding. I started seeing things about like the poles shifting. And I was like, what does that mean inside of me? Like the entire world that I experience doesn't have to be destroyed. But the way for it to not be destroyed is for me to not fear destruction, but face what it is that I'm not facing. So then over the last couple weeks, I keep getting super emotional in all kinds of directions. Like crying because I'm so grateful. Crying because I'm sad. But I have no idea why. But then as I looked at it, go to part 3. This is part 3 of what you may experience when you start to realize that you are non-dual in nature, that it's all you. So these overwhelming emotions were coming up in me, and I tried finding their source. And what I was realizing was that there was pains that I have not processed, and I didn't realize that I had not processed them because I felt like they were no big deal, or like I had already forgiven, moved on, even friends with people that from pains that I have felt. But what I realized is that I had not processed them because I actually did not understand them. And to actually not have them in you, you have to understand where they came from. And probably a lot of you are having this coming up right now. And so what was going on in me is I was having all of these like stories in my mind, like other lives with people, with me. But again, I think past lives, the reason why they're there is because everything is you. You can experience any life. But I was seeing these different stories of lives where these people were in these lives and things needed to play out in a certain way for things to be realized and seen, bigger, healed. And I was just like bawling because yeah, I saw like people die and things of that nature, but then I saw like a bigger picture and it brought me to understandings on certain things. And so I would get like these epiphanies, like a release. So it's like these flooding emotions. And I feel like a lot of that is coming up. And for me, and probably for a lot of others, I realized that you could say was like blocking my heart chakra. Again, if it's defined, it's a story. But another thing that came up is I had the question, why the hell is my life such a clusterfuck right now? And yes, I'm doing what I love, but what I mean by that is I am surrounded by chaos. I mean, I'm not organized, okay? I have bills not paid, not enough money, not a home, not a working car. And it makes no sense to me. And the reason why it makes no sense is because that's not how I am. But it seemed that over the last few years, no matter how hard I tried, what I did didn't work. Go to part 4. So this is the final part of some things that can happen to you when you start to realize that you are one with everything, non-dual. So I was questioning why my life was such a clusterfuck. No money, no car, no home. Kids are with their dad. I'm doing what I love. I work all the time. I'm still broke, but it's all connected. And it makes no sense. My life is like this because there's so much times in my life, like boss energy, like written all over my chart. And I have been really successful. But then there's been other times in my life where it's like completely the opposite. I started realizing it's when I'm in a relationship that I'm successful. Not because the relationship is providing me with money, which, yes, in some ways it did. But my first ex-husband was a stay-at-home dad most of the time. And the second one, I did all the bills, I did all the finances. I worked 1 or 2 jobs and went to school full time at different times. I also had kids. We got 2 brand new cars. I raised our credit scores 200 points. But then the last 3 years, I'm single and I'm just like fucked. I just started realizing there's some kind of connection. Well, recently I got an offer to be in the store at Healing Hands, which was going to bring in a lot more money. And then I remembered something. I looked at the date and I realized that like 2 days before that, someone made a comment to me. And the comment like made me feel like I was so loved. And then all this shit just rushed in my head about that I've learned about my chart. And I realized that when I feel like that, that's when all the goods come to me. The lesson is that I can feel like that now, that I don't have to go searching outside of myself for it. Because actually it's me. It's all me. And that I will also see that and experience that in the world outside of me when I feel that inside of me. But it's like we're just all learning who we are because we are all one, but experiencing ourselves as separate. But the more you begin to realize that what you're seeing and experiencing is you as well, a lot of shit can come up for you to process, and you can say heal, but it's really already healed. It's just about seeing it, understanding it. And sometimes you can feel alone because you have no one to talk to because they'll think you're crazy. But then you realize that you're the cause of other people thinking you're crazy. It can feel a bit maddening. But if you don't run away from it, you'll get through it.